March 6, 2005. Tracey Gardner is getting ready for a concert. Her friends bought her a ticket to see Motley Crue in Washington, D.C. tonight, a birthday present. She's been looking forward to this for weeks. 32 years old, blonde hair, blue eyes, bird tattoos on her ankle and back, gray sweatshirt, white Nike sneakers, silver rings on every finger. Her black Pontiac Trans Am sits in the driveway, keys ready. It's a 2-hour drive to D.C. The concert starts at 8. At 3:05 p.m., her cell phone makes its last recorded call. Then, silence. At 7:48 p.m., a camera captures her Trans Am passing through the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel, heading south toward Washington. But Tracey never makes it to the concert. The seat beside her friend stays empty all night. 11 days later, police find her car abandoned in a hotel parking lot 20 minutes from her house. But the person who parked it? That wasn't Tracey. Let me tell you who Tracey was in March 2005. She owns her own home in Rosedale, Maryland, works as a dispatcher at Aggregate Industries, reliable, valued, takes care of 3 pets she adores. Her friends describe her as responsible, caring, the kind of person who shows up when she says she will. But there's trouble at home. 6 months earlier, in September 2004, Tracey married Dennis Joseph Tetso. By March, the marriage is crumbling. Tracey is afraid of him. She's told friends she wants out. Divorce is on her mind. Her foster mother, Millie Delana, who took Tracey in back in 1990 when she was 18, knows something is terribly wrong. They've spent every Christmas together for 15 years. This past Christmas, December 2004, Tracey was struggling, scared. 3 months later, she'd be gone. But tonight's concert? That's not about Dennis. That's about the man Tracey's been seeing in secret. And the question that changes everything is, does Dennis know? His name is Christian Sinnott. He works with Tracey at the cement company. They started as friends in January 2005, just 2 months ago. Friendship became something more. Christian knows about Dennis, knows the marriage is failing, knows Tracey is planning to leave. The Motley Crue concert tonight isn't with friends like Tracey told Dennis. She's meeting Christian there, a real date, away from Dennis, away from the house where she feels trapped. Christian is already in Washington, waiting. He has her ticket. But there's something Tracey doesn't know. Someone at work noticed her and Christian together, saw the way they looked at each other, the quiet conversations. And in December 2004, 3 months ago, that coworker pulled Dennis aside, man to man. He told Dennis everything. December 2004. Dennis learns his wife is having an affair. He doesn't explode, doesn't confront Tracey, doesn't file for divorce. He does something colder. Dennis buys a recording device and attaches it to their home telephone. Every call Tracey makes, every conversation she has, Dennis listens to it all. But that's not enough. He borrows someone's van. Not his own vehicle, a van Tracey won't recognize. He follows her to work, follows her home, parks down the street and watches. Dennis tells a coworker about this, almost brags about it, says he's monitoring his wife, says he knows what she's doing. For 3 months, December through February into March, Dennis watches Tracey, studies her patterns, learns her schedule. He knows about Christian. He knows about the affair, and when March 6th rolls around and Tracey says she's going out with friends, Dennis knows she's lying. He knows she's meeting Christian at that concert, and Tracey has no idea she's being watched. March 6th, 2005. Around 3 in the afternoon, Tracey is home in Rosedale, getting ready, excited. At 3:05 p.m., she makes a call. Maybe to Christian, confirming plans, maybe to a friend. That call is the last activity on her phone, ever. After 3:05 p.m., her cell goes completely dark, turned off, or destroyed. Dennis is home that afternoon. He's there when Tracey is getting ready to leave. What happens in the next few hours, no one witnesses. No neighbors see anything. No cameras capture it. But at 7:48 p.m., a camera at the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel records Tracey's black Trans Am passing through, heading southbound toward Washington, toward the MCI Center, toward the concert. The car is making the journey, but investigators will later determine something chilling. Tracey Gardner wasn't the one driving it. 8 o'clock. The MCI Center in Washington, D.C. Motley Crue takes the stage. Thousands of fans scream as the lights flash and the bass pounds through the arena. Christian Sinnott is somewhere in that crowd. He has 2 tickets, one for him, one for Tracey. He checks his phone. She's not answering. He calls again, straight to voicemail. Maybe traffic, maybe car trouble, maybe she changed her mind. The concert continues. Girls, 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 Dr. Feelgood, Kickstart My Heart. The seat beside Christian stays empty. By midnight, Christian knows something is wrong. He calls Tracey's phone over and over. Nothing. The next morning, he calls Tracey's house. Dennis answers. March 7th, 2005, the morning after the concert. Dennis Tetzo calls the Baltimore County Police Department and reports Tracey missing. He tells them Tracey left yesterday around 3 in the afternoon, said she was going to a concert with friends, never came home. Police ask the standard questions. When did you last see her? What was she wearing? Where might she go? Dennis answers calmly, almost too calmly. Police begin their investigation, calling Tracey's friends and family. Everyone says the same thing. This isn't like Tracey. She wouldn't just disappear. Something is wrong. Tracey's foster mother, Millie Delina, is frantic. Friends organize search parties. They make flyers. They call news stations. Tammy Swearingen, who describes herself as practically Tracey's sister, leads vigils, coordinates searches, posts Tracey's photo everywhere. And Dennis? Dennis refuses to participate in any of it. Within 48 hours of reporting Tracey missing, Dennis Tetzo stops cooperating with police. He won't answer follow-up questions, won't take a polygraph, won't join the search parties that Tracey's friends and family are organizing throughout Baltimore. While they're posting flyers and combing through neighborhoods, Dennis is at home, alone, silent. Police come to interview him. He gives minimal answers, then stops opening the door. His attorney, David Irwin, later describes Dennis as stoic about the situation. But to everyone else, his behavior is disturbing, bizarre. What husband reports his wife missing, then refuses to help find her? Detectives immediately focus on Dennis as their primary suspect. But without evidence, without a body, there's nothing they can charge him with. For now, all they can do is wait and watch. Then, on day 11, they get a break. March 17th, 2005, 11 days after Tracey disappeared. A guest at the Days Inn in Glen Burnie, Maryland, about 20 minutes from Tracey's home in Rosedale, notices a black Pontiac Trans Am in the parking lot, tinted windows, Maryland plates, LRN 534. It's been sitting there for days. The hotel staff calls it in. Police run the plates. It's Tracey's car. They secure the vehicle immediately, process it for evidence, dust for prints, check for blood, search the trunk. Nothing. The car is clean. But the hotel has surveillance cameras in the parking lot. Police pull the footage. The video shows a figure driving the Trans Am into the lot late at night. The figure parks the car, gets out, and walks away into the darkness. Police enhance the footage, zoom in, analyze the height, the build, the gait. It's a man, definitely not Tracey. But who? Police study the surveillance footage frame by frame. The man who parked Tracey's car walks away from the Days Inn on foot. He doesn't get into another vehicle. The cameras show him walking toward a residential area. Then he disappears from view. Either someone picked him up just off camera, or he lived nearby. The Days Inn is in Glen Burnie, not far from Rosedale, where Tracey and Dennis live. But the video quality isn't good enough to identify the man's face. He's wearing dark clothing, keeps his head down. Police show the footage to Tracey's friends and family. Does this build match anyone you know? The way they walk? No one can say for certain. But Dennis Tetso lives less than 20 minutes from this parking lot. Police check he could have walked home from here in under 2 hours. Investigators start forming a theory, but theories aren't evidence. They need proof. Investigators turn their attention to the car itself. Tracey's Trans Am uses a remote key, not a regular key, but a programmed electronic key specifically coded to that vehicle. Without the correct remote, you cannot start that car, period. Police check Tracey's purchase records. They find a receipt from a local car dealership dated just a few months before her disappearance. The receipt is very specific. This was the only key programmed for that Trans Am, the only one in existence. Think about what that means. If someone drove Tracey's car to the Days Inn on March 6th or shortly after, they had to have this specific remote key. There was no other way to start that vehicle, no other way to drive it. So where is the key now? Police interview Dennis again. They ask about Tracey's car, about the keys, about where things were kept in the house. And that's when they discover something that changes the entire investigation. Dennis has the remote key. He's had it since Tracey disappeared. The only key in Dennis's possession. Let's lay out what police know by this point. 1. Dennis discovered in December 2004 that Tracey was having an affair. A coworker will later testify to telling Dennis about it. 2. Dennis responded by surveilling his wife. He put a recording device on their phone. He borrowed a van to follow her. He bragged about this to a coworker. 3. On March 6th, Tracey's phone went dead at 3:05 p.m. She was last seen at their home in Rosedale, where Dennis was present. 4. At 7:48 p.m., Tracey's car passed through the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel heading toward Washington, but Tracey never arrived at the concert. 11 days later, surveillance footage shows a man parking Tracey's car at a Glen Burnie hotel and walking away. 6. Dennis has the only remote key that could start that car, the only one. 7. Dennis refused to cooperate with the investigation, refused to help search, refused to answer questions. It all points to Dennis. But there's one massive problem. No body, no crime scene, no physical evidence that Tracey is even dead. And without a body, murder charges are extraordinarily difficult to prove. So investigators wait, build their case. Months turn into years. But they never stop. 2005 becomes 2006, then 2007, then 2008. Tracey Gardner remains missing. Dennis Tetso remains free, living his life. Baltimore County State's Attorney Scott Schellenberger keeps the case file on his desk. He reviews it periodically, studies the evidence, talks to detectives. He's convinced Tracey is dead. He's convinced Dennis killed her, but without a body, prosecuting feels nearly impossible. Then in 2007, Schellenberger decides to take a fresh look at everything. He brings in new investigators. They re-interview witnesses, reconstruct the timeline, study the surveillance footage again. And they realize something. This case is viable. They can prove murder without a body. It's rare, it's difficult, but it's possible. In June 2009, 4 years and 3 months after Tracey disappeared, police arrest Dennis Joseph Tetso. The charge? Murder. But how do you prove someone's dead when you can't find the body? Baltimore County has never prosecuted a murder case without a body. This will be the first in the county's history. To prove Tracey is dead, prosecutors will demonstrate that she's had no contact with anyone since March 6, 2005. No phone calls, no bank activity, no credit card use, nothing. A responsible 32-year-old woman with a home, a job, pets she loved and a foster mother she spoke to constantly doesn't just vanish for 4 years by choice. Tracey Gardner is dead. Now, prosecutors have to prove Dennis killed her. Their case will rest on 3 pillars. 1. Motive. Dennis knew about the affair. He was obsessively jealous. He'd been surveilling Tracey for months. 2. Opportunity. Dennis was with Tracey when she disappeared. He was the last person to see her. 3. The key. Dennis had the only way to drive Tracey's car, and someone drove that car to a hotel and abandoned it. State Attorney Schellenberger later says, "I had no doubt that Tracey was dead, and no doubt in my mind that Dennis Tetso had done it." The trial is set for October 2010, 5 years after Tracey disappeared. October 2010, Baltimore County Circuit Court. Dennis Tetso sits at the defense table. He's 45 years old now, 5 years older than when Tracey vanished. He's been free on bail since his arrest, living his life while Tracey's family has been in agony. Assistant State Attorneys Garrett Glennon and Michelle Samoric present the prosecution's case. They called a coworker who told Dennis about the affair in December 2004. He testifies about Dennis's reaction, the recording device, the borrowed van, the obsessive surveillance. They present Tracey's phone records, the last call at 3:05 p.m. on March 6th, then nothing, ever. They show the surveillance video from the Days Inn, the unidentified man parking Tracey's car and walking away. They present the receipt for the remote key, the only key programmed for that Trans Am. They show that Dennis had that key in his possession when police questioned him. The circumstantial evidence builds, piece by piece. And then, Assistant State Attorney Glennon presents the prosecution's theory of what happened on March 6, 2005. Glennon stands before the jury and lays it out. On March 6, Tracey told Dennis she was going to a concert with friends, but Dennis knew she was lying. He'd been monitoring her for 3 months. He knew she was meeting Christian. Sometime between 3 o'clock and shortly after 3:05 p.m., Dennis confronted Tracey. Maybe in the house, maybe in the driveway as she tried to leave. The confrontation turned violent. Dennis killed Tracey. The manner of death, strangulation, blunt force trauma, they can't prove without a body, but she died that afternoon in Rosedale. Then Dennis disposed of Tracey's body somewhere between Rosedale and Glen Burnie. That evening, Dennis drove Tracey's Trans Am south through the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel at 7:48 p.m., creating the appearance that she was heading to the concert. He parked the car at the Days Inn in Glen Burnie and walked away, likely walking back to Rosedale. The next morning, he reported her missing, playing the concerned husband. But he had the key, the only key that could start that car. And that's what proves he drove it. Glennon sits down. The defense stands up. Dennis Tetso is the only defense witness. His attorney, David Irwin, has no choice. Without Dennis's testimony, there is no defense. Dennis takes the stand. The courtroom falls silent. He tells the jury he didn't harm his wife. He has no idea where she is. Yes, they had marital problems. Yes, he knew about the affair. But he didn't kill her. The prosecutor cross-examines him. "Mr. Tetso, you had the remote key to your wife's Trans Am, correct?" "I don't remember exactly how I got it." "The surveillance video shows a man parking that car at the Days Inn. Was that you?" "No." "Why did you stop cooperating with police?" "I was scared. I didn't know what to do." "Why didn't you help search for your wife?" Dennis doesn't have a good answer. The jury watches him carefully, studies his face, his body language, the way he answers questions. Defense attorney Irwin later describes Dennis as stoic, but to the jury, he looks like a man who's lying, and everyone in that courtroom can see it. October 22, 2010. The jury returns. Dennis Tetso has been free on bail for 16 months, living his life while Tracey's family waited for justice. The foreman stands. We find the defendant, Dennis Joseph Tetso, guilty of murder in the second degree. Not first-degree murder. The jury didn't believe Dennis planned to kill Tracey in advance, but they believed he killed her. They believed he disposed of her body. They believed he drove her car to that hotel and tried to cover his tracks. Dennis is led away in handcuffs. He'll be sentenced on November 23rd to 30 years in prison. In the gallery, Tracey's family cries, relief and grief mixed together. Tammy Swearingen, Tracey's close friend, later says the verdict felt like a huge weight was lifted off everyone, that hearing it in court was almost magical. Justice for Tracey, but not closure, because they still don't know where she is, and Dennis won't tell them. After the conviction, prosecutors make Dennis an offer. Tell us where Tracey's body is. Give her family closure. We'll consider it during sentencing. Dennis refuses. He maintains his innocence, says he didn't kill his wife, says he doesn't know where she is. Police continue searching. They follow up on tips. They use cadaver dogs in wooded areas around Glen Burnie and Rosedale. They search construction sites, abandoned properties, bodies of water. Nothing. Tracey's stepmother, Tracey Gardner, speaks to reporters outside the courthouse, tears streaming down her face. "We want to give her a proper burial," she says. "It has been hell and back the last 5 years. The worst part is not knowing where she is." She holds a large photograph of Tracey, blonde hair, blue eyes, smiling. She plans to write "Justice for Tracey" on it and display it on the family's lawn in Glen Burnie. Justice without closure feels hollow. Investigators have a theory about where Dennis hid Tracey's body. The timeline suggests he killed her sometime between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. on March 6th. He drove her Trans Am through the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel at 7:48 p.m. Somewhere in those roughly 4 hours, Dennis disposed of Tracey's body. He had to stay relatively close to home. He needed to get back to Rosedale. He didn't have another vehicle waiting. He likely walked home from the Days Inn, which means he couldn't have gone too far. That suggests Tracey is within a 10 to 15-mile radius of Rosedale and Glen Burnie. Police search parks, wooded areas, the shoreline near the Chesapeake Bay. But Maryland has countless places to hide a body. Forests, marshland, abandoned properties that's since been built over. Dennis knows where Tracey is, and unless he decides to tell someone, she may never be found. Tracey Gardner left behind a home she loved in Rosedale, 3 pets who needed her, a job where she was valued and respected. She left behind friends who considered her family, friends like Tammy Swearingen, who organized vigils and search parties and never stopped fighting for justice. She left behind a foster mother who took her in at 18 and loved her like a daughter, Millie Delina, who spent every Christmas with Tracey for 15 years, who watched her grow into a strong, independent woman, who tried to help when Tracey's marriage fell apart. Millie later says, "We spent every Christmas together, except the last one, when she was having all those problems at home." Tracey also left behind Christian Sinnott, who waited for her at a concert with a ticket she never used, who called her phone over and over, hoping she'd answer. And she left behind a question that haunts everyone who knew her. Where is she now? Her family deserves to know. They deserve to bury her. They deserve closure. But Dennis Tetso won't give them that. November 23, 2010. Dennis Tetso is sentenced to 30 years in prison. He'll be 75 years old when he's released, if he survives that long. Tracey's family wanted life without parole. They wanted him to die in prison, but second-degree murder doesn't carry that sentence in Maryland. So they settle for 30 years. 30 years for Dennis to think about what he did. 30 years for him to change his mind, to develop a conscience, to tell them where Tracey is. But as the years pass, that hope fades. Dennis continues to maintain his innocence. He appeals his conviction. The appeal is denied. He plays the victim in interviews, claiming there wasn't enough evidence. His attorney, David Irwin, argues there was a lack of sufficient evidence to support a murder verdict, saying there's no way that a reasonable jury could find the intent to commit murder based on no facts. But the jury saw the facts. They saw the key. They saw the surveillance. They saw Dennis on the stand. And somewhere in Maryland, Tracey Gardner's remains are still hidden, waiting to be found, waiting to come home. March 6, 2005. Tracey Gardner was 32 years old. Blonde hair, she bleached herself. Blue eyes, bird tattoos on her ankle and lower back, silver rings on every finger. She was getting ready for a concert that Sunday afternoon, Motley Crue at the MCI Center, a birthday present from her friends. She was excited. It was supposed to be a good night, a night of freedom. Her black Trans Am was in the driveway. The concert started at 8 in Washington, D.C. 2-hour drive. She had plenty of time. At 3:05 p.m., her phone made its last call. She never made it to the concert, never made it out of Rosedale. Her husband, Dennis Tetso, made sure of that. He killed her that afternoon, hid her body somewhere only he knows, drove her car to a hotel parking lot, and walked away. 5 years later, he was convicted of her murder. He's serving 30 years in prison, but Tracey is still missing, still hidden, still waiting to be found. The band, Motley Crue, offered a $10,000 reward for information about her disappearance. They featured her case on America's Most Wanted, but no viable tips ever came in. Nearly 20 years have passed. Tracey would be 53 years old now if she were alive. Her family still searches. They still hope. They deserve to bring her home. If you have any information about the disappearance of Tracey Leigh Gardner, please contact Baltimore County Police Department, 410-307-2020. National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233. If you or someone you know is in an abusive relationship, please reach out. Tracey's story didn't have to end this way. Let me know your theory in the comments below, and if you believe Tracey Gardner deserves to be found, please like this video and share her story.